Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. This is Math 101, second major examination, term 231. Let us have a look to the exam and solve it together. The first question, find the values of x, y, z, and w. So there is a matrix here multiplied by 3 minus 2 times another matrix, 2 by 2, 2 by 2 matrices equals 2 by 2 matrix. Now, if you multiply this matrix by 3 and this matrix by 2 and subtract them, you will get a matrix. And the resulting matrix should be equal to this matrix. Equality between matrices means that all, they must have the same size. Of course, here they have the same size. And all corresponding elements should be equal. So for example, here, for this matrix, what is the element in the first row, first column? It's 20. So if you do the operation here, the operations, what would be the element in the first row, first column? It would be 3 times x minus 2 times 4x, which is negative 8x. So it would be negative 5x. So negative 5x would be the element in the first row, first column of the resulting matrix after you do all of these operations. If you want, you can do the operations and find the matrix and then put them equal to each other. But he needs the values of x, y, and z and w. So I'll do it like this. This is the element, the entry in the first row, first column of the left-hand side. It should be equal to the element in the entry in the first row, first column of the right-hand side. So negative 5x equals 20. If I divide by negative 5, then x would be 20 over negative 5, and that's negative 4. So this is the value of x. Do the same for this element now. 3 times 4 is 12. Minus 2 times 2z means minus 4z. Should be equal to what here? Again, 220. And this is an equation. We solve this equation to find the value of z. So if I take 12 to the other side, I'll have negative 4z equals 20 minus 12, and that's 8. So z would be 8 over negative 4, and that's negative 2. So this is the value of z. Do the same for this entry. 3 times 4y is 12y. Minus 2 times minus 3, that's plus 6. This should be equal to 6 from the right-hand side. Now, if you take 6 to the other side, it would be 6 minus 6, which is 0. So 12y equals to 0. So y equals to 0 over 12, which is 0. So the value of y is 0. Finally, this element, 3 times w, this entry, 3 times w. Minus 2 times minus 2w. What would you get? Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. So 4w. This should be equal to what? 14. Well, 3w plus 4w is 7w. 7w equals to 14. So what would be w? 14 over 7, which is 2. So these are the values of the variables, and this is the answer to the question. The second question, ax equals b. A inverse is given, b is given. Find the matrix x. Well, we have learned in this course that if we have ax equals b, then x would be equal to A inverse times b. So simply, to get rid of this A, we multiply by A inverse from the left. And when you multiply by A inverse from the left, you get the identity here. A inverse times A is the identity. And the identity times x is x. So the solution of this equation would be always this equation. He needs you to find x, so I can find x. It is A inverse times b. Well, A inverse is given in the question. And B is given. So all what I need to do is to multiply them. How to multiply two matrices? This is a 3 by 3. And here we have 3 rows and 1 column. Can we multiply? Yes, because we have 3 here and 3 here. What would be the resulting matrix, the order? It would be 3 by 1. So 3 rows and 1 column. How to get the resulting matrix, the product? We multiply the first row here by this column. So 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. We add them. 0 plus 2 is 0. And the second row now times this column. 3 times 3 is 9. 1 times 1 is 1. And 2 times 2 is 4. And now the third row times this column. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 1 and 1 times 2. And the answer would be 3 times 2 is 5. Here it is 14. And here it is 15. And this would be the matrix X. So this is the matrix X. This is the answer. For solving the system, the Gauss-Jordan elimination method is used and reached this matrix. So he started by writing the augmented matrix and worked with this augmented matrix certain steps, some steps, until he reaches this one. The question is complete the reduction and obtain the solution of the system. So what do we have here? We have 1, 0, 0. So what is the next step? The first column is done for us. What about the second column? We should have 1 in this position. It is 1 already. So we have to use it to change these two numbers to zeros. So how to do that? This is 1. How to use it to make this one 0? I multiply row 2 by -1 and add it to row 1. Then -1 plus 1 would be 0. Also, I should use row 2 to make this number 0. How? Again, the same, negative R2 plus R3. So what would be the new matrix? Well, the second row is not changing because I'm using it to change the first and the third rows. Now the first row is going to change. -0 plus 1 is 1 because -0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. Negative times -1, that's 1, plus 2, that's 3. -400 plus 1,300. So 1,300 minus 400, that's 900. Finished from the first row. Now the third row. Negative R2 plus R3. -0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. Negative times negative, that's 1. Plus 0 is 1. -400 plus 600 is 200. So now I finished from the first column and the second column. Now I move to the third column. I should make this number 1, but it is already 1. Thank you for the writer of the exam. This is 1. Okay, so what should I do now? I should use this one to change these two numbers to zeros. How? This is 1. How can I use it to change, to make -1, 0? I just add them. So R3, 1 times R3 plus R2. And the 3, how to make it 0 using this one? So I multiply R3 by -3 and add it to row 1. Okay. Now I'll have the following matrix. Which row here is not changing? Row 3, because I'm using it to change row 1 and row 2. Okay, let us finish of row 2. We just add 0 plus 0, 0, 0 plus 1, 1 plus -1, 200 plus 400. What about the first row? -3 times 0, that's 0, plus 1. -3 times 0, that's 0, plus 0. -3 plus 3, that's 0. Negative 3 times 200, that's negative 600, plus 900, that's 300. So now we reached here in this side, the identity matrix. And this is how Gauss and Jordan work. Okay, works. You have to change this matrix to the identity matrix. And now, what are the variables in the question? X, Y, Z. So this is the column of X, this is the column of Y, this is the column of Z. So let us write the equations. After we reach the final step, we write the equations. 1 times X, 0 times Y, 0 times Z equals to 300. So X is 300. 0 times X, 1 times Y, so Y is 600. 0 times X, 0 times Y, 1 times Z is 200. So this is the solution of the question. You can just leave it like this. You have the values of X, Y, and Z. So that's the answer. If you want to write it as an ordered triple, value of X, value of Y, value of Z, this is also okay. So either this or this would be fine. Adam invests $6,139 in a retirement account. So this is the principal with a fixed annual interest rate. So there is an R, but it's not given. Compounded continuously. The formula for compounded continuously is S, which is the future value, equals to B, the present value or the principal, times E to the power R T, where E is the number E, R is the interest rate, and T is the time in years. After 17 years, so this is T, the time in years, the balance reaches this amount. So this amount is the future value, is S. What is the interest rate? So he is asking about R, the interest rate. So S is 8624.97. P is 6139 times E to the power R times T. So R times 17, I'm going to write it 17R. R times 17 or 17R, that's the same. All right, now how to solve this question? R is in the power. So how can I bring it down? How can I solve this equation for R? You have to apply ln to both sides because ln b to the power R is R ln b. So you see the logarithm ln or any other logarithm, but we prefer ln, has this property. He can brings R, the power, bring it down here. So this will make fine for me. Also, I have e to some power. So I have a relation. Ln ex is x. So ln cancels e. So that's an important relation. And the power also becomes down. So, but you see, when I apply ln, I must have b to the power r, e to the power x. I have problem here because this number is there. So the first thing to do is to get rid of this number. So I have to divide both sides by 6,139. So divide 8,624.97 by 6,139. The answer is 1.404944706 equals e to the power 17r. Now I apply ln to both sides. So ln of this number, why I'm writing all of it? Because I'd like to get the exact answer. Ln e to the power 17r. Now ln cancels e and I'll have 17r. So what would be r? R would be divided by 17. So it would be ln of this number divided by 17. I can ask the calculator about the ln of this number and divide by 17 at the same time. And the answer would be 0.0199999. So it is point, well, it is not 9 always. After 4 nines, I have 7. So I'll just keep it like this, and I'll make it 0.2 because you can approximate here. I have 9999, so it would be 0.02. So this is exactly 2%. So R is 2%. The interest rate here is 2%. So pay attention here, we divide by 17. Len of this number divided by 17. Use the graphing method to find the maximum and minimum values, if they exist, of the objective function subject to these constraints. To use the graphing method, I need to graph the first inequality. To graph the inequality, I start by graphing the line. So I change less than to equal, and I graph this line. The best way to graph a line is to find 2 points. The easiest points to find is to replace x by 0. So 2y would be 16, or y is 8, and then replace y by 0. Replacing y by 0, then x would be 16. So I have these 2 points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is the point 0, 8, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So this is the point 16, and the line is passing by these 2 points. Now the graph of the first inequality is half a plane. Is it the upper half, this half, or the lower half? To find out, I choose a point from this half or from this half. The easiest point to choose always is 0, 0. So I can choose 0 and 0. Replace it here. Replace x by 0, y by 0. What would you get? 0 plus 0, that's 0. So I'll get 0 less than or equal to 16. Is this correct or false? It's correct. So this means that this half, the lower half, is the solution of the first inequality. Good. Now go to the second inequality. How to sketch the graph of the second inequality? Let us start by graphing the line. Put x 0, so y is 18. Put y 0, so 3x is 18, x is 6. So this is 6, and I have to go to 18 here. So this is 18. So 6 with 18, this is the line. Of course, this line is going. And now, where is the graph? Is it to the right of this line or to the left? Is it this half or this half? Check 0, 0. Does 0, 0 satisfy the inequality? 0 plus 0 less than 18. Is this true? Yes. So 0, 0 is in the solution of this inequality. So the solution is to the left of this line. And x is greater than 0, y is greater than 0. This is x-axis, this is the x-axis. X greater than 0 means to the right of the x-axis. Means to the right. So here, to the right of the x-axis. Y greater than 0 means this is y, means y is positive. Y is positive here in the first and the second quadrant. So if x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0, we are working in the first quadrant. So these two conditions means we are in the first quadrant. Good. And the graph should be below this line and to the left of this line. So where is the region? Where is the region that satisfies all of these conditions? It is this region. Now this region, this area, is what satisfies all the conditions. X is greater than 0, y is greater than 0, below this line, to the left of this line. So this is my feasible region. This is the region. Now what should we do after we find the region? We find the corner points of the region. What are the corner points? We have 4 corner points. So I'll put it in a table. I have 0, 0, I have this point which has coordinates 0, 8. This point has coordinates 6, 0. And now what about this point? Well, I can think it's 4, 6 from the graph, but it's better to find it. How to find it? It's the intersection point between these two lines. What are the equations of the two lines? I have x plus 2y equals 16 and 3x plus y equals 18. So you need to solve these two equations together and find the intersection point, which would give you the corner point. You can solve it by the calculator if you have a calculator, or let me multiply the first equation by -3. I'll solve it by elimination. Okay, so negative 3x, -3 times 2, -6y, -3 times 16, -48. Add, so these will cancel. -6y plus y, this is -5y, -48 plus 18, that's just -30. So y is -13 over -5, that's 6. If I put it here, 2 times 6 is 12, 16 minus 12 is 4, so x is 4. So the point is 4, 6. X is 4 and y is 6. Now what should I do? I should write the objective function here. What is the objective function? It is 5x plus 8y. And I should substitute these corner points in the objective functions and write the answer. So if you replace x by 0, y by 0, f would be 0. If x is 0, y is 8, then 8 times 8 is 64. If x is 6, 5 times 6 is 30 and y is 0. If x is 4, I'll have 20. Y is 6, 6 times 8 is 48. So 20 plus 48 is 68. Now the question is, find the maximum and the minimum values of f. That's the question. Find the maximum and minimum values of f. So what is the maximum of f? Maximum of f is, what is the maximum number here? 68. Where does it happen? When x is 4, y is 6, or you just say at 4 and 6. What is the minimum of f? Smallest number is 0. At what corner point? 0, 0. So this is the answer to the question. I hope that this is clear. Okay. 18,000 is invested. So this is the principal for 9 months. So time is 9 over 12 because it should be in years. Time should be in years. If he gives it in months, I divide by 12. So I change it 2 years. So if you divide by 3, it would be 3 over 4 or 0.75. At an annual simple interest rate, so this is R, I have to write it as a decimal. So it's 0.15. Dividing 15 by 100 would be 0.15. Now what is the future value? So he is asking about S. And how much interest will be earned? This is I. He said what? Simple interest rate. Simple. So what is the formula for the simple interest rate? I know that the interest is equal to PRT. So how much interest will be earned? I'll solve part B first. P is 18,000 times R, which is 0.15, times T, which is 3 over 4. And just use the calculator, 18,000 times 0.15 times 3 over 4. The answer is 2025. That's the interest. Of course, dollars. A, what is the future value? Well, the future value S is equal to the principal. which you invested, plus the interest which you got after 9 months. So it is 18,000 plus 2,005, and the answer would be 20,025. So this would be the future value. Use Simplex method to maximize this function subject to the constraints. Assume all variables are non-negative. Okay. Simplex method is an algebraic method. The first step in that method is to change every inequality to a straight line. How? By introducing what we call a slack variable. So I write it x plus 2y plus s1, which is the first slack variable, equals to 10. The second equation, x plus y, I introduce another slack variable, call it s2, equals to 7. And the objective function, I should change everything from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. So 2x, when you bring it to the left, it would be negative 2x. 3y, when you bring it to the left, it would be negative 3y. And I have already f in the left-hand side, and the right-hand side would be 0. After this step, I can write the first matrix. First matrix, you write the coefficients. Coefficient of x is 1, coefficient of y is 2, coefficient of S1 is 1. And there is S2 also. It's a variable in the question. Its coefficient in the first equation is 0. And there is an f. Also, there is no f in the first equation. And then there is 10 in the right-hand side. So these are the coefficients of x, here y, here S1, here S2, and here f. Now the second equation, write the coefficients 1, 1, S1, there is no S1 here. S2 has coefficient 1, there is no f, and the right-hand side is 7. What about the last row? We call it the objective row and put it alone here. We have negative 2, the coefficient of x, negative 3, the coefficient of y, and there is no S1 or S2, but there is an f with coefficient 1, and the right-hand side is 0. This is the initial simplex matrix. Now, how to solve the problem? We do a pivoting process, okay? Operation. How to do a pivoting operation? We find the pivot entry. How do we find the pivot entry? First, we look here to the objective row. What is the most negative number? I have negative 2, negative 3. Negative 3 is more negative than negative 2. So negative 3 will determine my pivot column. So this is my pivot column. So the pivot entry cannot be from the objective row. It has to be one of these two now. If these numbers are negative or 0, then they cannot be pivot entries, but both are positive. That's good. So how to determine which one of them is the pivot entry? I divide this number, which is 10, by 2. The answer is 5. Then I divide 7 by 1. The answer is 7. Which is smaller? 5. So this number is the pivot entry. So what should I do with the pivot entry? I should change it to 1, make it 1. How can I do that? I will divide row 1 by 2. You cannot here interchange. There is no interchanging row 1 with row 2. You have to divide row 1 by 2. If you interchange, 7 will go there, and if you divide, again 2 would be the pivot entry. So 2 is the pivot entry. You have to change it to 1 and use it to make all the other numbers zeros. So divide by 2. You don't have any other choice. So half, 1, half, 0, 0, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. I'm not going to write matrix here because this is not considered as a matrix because the step is not finished yet. The step will finish when I change the other numbers. So this is my pivot entry. No, it is not this one. This is the pivot entry. I have to change all the other numbers in the column to zeros. So -3, I have to change it to 0. And this one, I have to change it to 0 using the pivot entry, which is 1. Okay, how can I use 1 to change 1 to 0? Negative R1 plus R2. How can I use this one, not this one? This one to choose -3 to 0. Multiply row 1 by 3, add it to row 3. And now I'll have a new matrix. So half, 1, half, 0, 0, 5, and negative half plus 1 is half. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative half plus 0 is negative half. Negative 0 plus 1, negative 0 plus 0. Negative 5 plus 7 is 2. So that's the second row. What about the objective row? 3 times half, 3 over 2 minus 2. Well, 3 over 2 is 1.5 minus 2, so that's negative half. 3 minus 3 is 0. 3 over 2 plus 0, 3 over 2, or 1.5. 3 times 0 plus 0, 3 times 0 plus 1, 3 times 5 is 15 plus 0. So this is the new matrix. Now you look to the objective row again. Objective row, the last row. Do you still have negative numbers? Yes. So the problem is not solved yet. So I have to get rid of this negative. How? Similarly, I have to do a pivot operation. How to do a pivot operation? Find the pivot entry. What is the pivot entry? Well, I have only one negative number, so this is the pivot column. And now I divide 5 by half. The answer is 10. 5 times 2, it would be 2 divided by half. It would be 2 times 2, which is 4. Which is smaller? 4 is smaller than 10. So this number is my pivot entry. What should I do? I should change it to 1. How can I change it to 1? Divide by half, or better, multiply by 2. So I need to multiply row 2 by 2. Well, this is not a matrix, so I'm not going to put a matrix. I have the first row as it is. Second row, 2 times half is 1, 2 times 0, and this is my pivot entry. 2 times negative half, 2 times 1, 2 times 0, 2 times 2, and the objective row. Now, the pivot entry is half. That's good. I need to use it to make all the numbers in the column zeros. So this half should be 0. How can I do that? Negative half R2 plus R1. And this negative half should be 0. How can I do that? Multiply 1 by half and add it to row 3. And now I'll have the new matrix. Okay, this row is not going to change all the entries of this second row, row 2. Okay, let me find the objective function first. Half plus minus half, that's 0. Half times 0 plus 0. Negative half plus 3 over 2, it would be 2 over 2, which is 1. Half times 2 is 1 plus 0. Half times 0 plus 1. Half times 4 is 2 plus 15. So this is the objective row, no negative entries, so this is a final matrix. But let us find the first row. Negative half plus half, that's 0. Negative half times 0 plus 1. Negative half times negative 1 is half, plus half, that's 1. Negative half times 2 is negative 1 plus 0. And negative half times 0 plus 0. Negative half times 4 is negative 2 plus 5, that's 3. And this is the last matrix, the final matrix. And from this matrix, remember this is X, Y, and this is S1, S2, and F. So which variables here are basic and which variables are non-basic? If the variable has 1 and zeros elsewhere, so this is a leading one, so this means that x is basic. So the value of x would be 4. This one corresponds to 4. So the value of x is 4. How do we answer? How do we find the values? We put the non-basic variables zeros. What are the non-basic variables here? These two, S1 and S2, because they don't have 1, 0, 0. Okay, so S1 and S2 are zeros. So if you put S1 and S2 are zeros, then X would be 4 and Y would be 3. So the answer is maximum of F is, if you put S1 is 2 zeros, then F would be what? 17. So the maximum of F is 17 at X equals 4 and Y equals 3. Let me check my answer. If I replace X by 4 and Y by 3 here, 2 times 4 plus 3 times 3, I'll have 8 plus 9, that's 17. So that's a relief. My answer is good, is accurate. It doesn't have a problem when I replace it here. This was the final question. I hope you enjoyed solving this exam with me.